They said motherhood was beautiful, but no one warned Brenda it could also feel like drowning. Some nights, she stood in the dim corner of her small kitchen, sorting through a charity box. Tiny clothes donated by strangers, canned food with faded labels, and a soft baby blanket someone no longer needed. Her daughters slept in the next room, curled together for warmth, unaware of how close their mother was to breaking. Brenda was 8 months pregnant, exhausted from working 2 jobs and fighting tears that never seemed to dry. Every morning she rushed through the door late, breathless from dropping the girls at a neighbor's, praying she wouldn't lose yet another job. Every night she returned home aching, swollen, and alone. She had once imagined a life filled with partnership and love, but instead she carried the weight of an entire family on her own shoulders. She never planned to be this strong. Life simply left her no other choice. And all of it, every struggle, every tear, led back to one single moment. Before we continue, please give this video a like to help it spread to other viewers and subscribe to our channel to have more interesting stories coming your way. It all started on a sunny afternoon that should have been filled with joy, laughter, and pure celebration. A day Brenda hoped would soften the tension that had silently grown between her and Kelly. She had spent the morning arranging pastel balloons, tying soft ribbons around the backyard fence, and double-checking the dessert table. It wasn't just a gender reveal party to her. It was a chance to mend what was cracking. Friends and family gathered under the warm glow of the sun. Children chased bubbles in the grass, and neighbors chatted while sipping lemonade. Brenda's 2 daughters clung to her dress, excited for the big surprise. And at the center of it all stood Kelly, shoulders stiff, lips pressed into a thin line, holding the confetti cannon that would unveil the gender of their 3rd baby. Brenda tried to ignore the cold distance in his eyes. Months before, he had already hinted, again and again, that he wanted a son, a boy to carry his name, as he often said. She prayed silently that whatever color exploded into the air, he would smile, just once, for her sake, for their family's sake. Someone shouted, "Let's start the countdown." The crowd joined in. 10, 9, 8. Brenda held her daughter's hands and forced a hopeful smile. 3, 2, 1. Kelly pulled the trigger. A burst of pink erupted into the air, soft, shimmering, beautiful. The crowd cheered. The daughters jumped up and down, chanting with pure innocence, "It's a girl! It's a girl!" But Kelly didn't jump. He didn't smile. He didn't clap. His face fell with a heaviness that sucked the joy out of the air. The confetti cannon slipped from his fingers and clattered onto the grass. For a split second, the world around Brenda blurred, cheers fading, smiles turning confused, the bright pink cloud drifting like a cruel reminder. She called softly, "Kelly?" But he didn't answer. He turned away from the celebration without a word. The crowd grew silent as he marched through the back door. Brenda felt panic tighten in her chest. She followed him inside, her girls trailing behind her, pink glitter still in their hair. In their bedroom, Kelly was already dragging a suitcase from under the bed. The sound of the zipper sliced through the quiet house. "Kelly, what are you doing?" Brenda whispered, one hand resting protectively on her belly. He didn't look at her, not even once. "I can't do this," he muttered, grabbing clothes from the closet and throwing them into the suitcase. "3 girls? Brenda, no, I'm done." Her breath caught. "You're leaving because of the baby's gender?" He slammed the suitcase shut. "I wanted a son. I deserve a son." Deserve. The word stabbed deeper than anything he had said before. The daughters stood frozen in the doorway, confusion clouding their eyes. Brenda stepped forward, tears pooling in hers. "Kelly, please, please don't walk out on us." But he rolled the suitcase past her without slowing, past their daughters, past the soft decorations she hung with hope, past the desk whose whispers now filled the living room. He opened the front door, stepped into the world outside, and let it close behind him. Hard, final, unforgiving. Brenda stood there trembling. Her daughters ran to her, wrapping their tiny arms around her legs. She knelt, pulled them close, and whispered through her tears, "It's okay. Mommy's here. I'm right here." Outside, the last of the pink confetti floated slowly to the ground, gentle, beautiful, and heartbreaking. It settled around Brenda like the beginning of a storm she never saw coming. But she held her daughters tighter, because even though this was the day Kelly walked out, it was also the day Brenda's strength quietly began to rise. The house felt different the morning after Kelly left. Quieter, heavier, as if the walls themselves were adjusting to the emptiness he left behind. Brenda woke up with her daughters curled beside her, their tiny breaths warm against her arms. She brushed their hair gently, trying to keep her own tears from falling on their cheeks. She had no time to sit with her pain. Life didn't give her that luxury. By 6 a.m., she was already moving, packing school bags, making toast with the last 2 slices of bread, tying her daughter's shoelaces with shaky hands. Every movement hurt, not because she was weak, but because she was exhausted, 8 months pregnant, heartbroken, and suddenly carrying the weight of the world alone. Her first job started at 7:30 a.m. Her second shift began at 4 p.m. Her body begged for rest, but her children needed her more. Many days she showed up late to the morning job, breathless from rushing out the door after settling the girls with a neighbor who agreed to watch them before school. Her boss, a stern woman with little patience, didn't care that Brenda's belly was heavy and her life had fallen apart. Every tardy mark felt like another nail in the coffin of her already fragile employment. "Brenda, this can't keep happening," her boss warned one morning. "I know, I'm trying. Try harder, or we'll have to replace you." Replace. As if she were a broken tool. She swallowed the shame and kept working. At night, she headed for her second job, a cleaning position in an office building across town. The pay was low, the hours were long, the supervisors were impatient, and some nights the pressure was so intense she held back tears as she scrubbed floors, her swollen feet burning beneath her. There were evenings when the contractions tightened too early, sharp reminders that stress was tearing through her body. She leaned against walls, breathing through the pain, praying her baby would hold on just a little longer. Food became a worry. Clothes were another. The girls were growing, and Brenda had a belly that made bending difficult, walking painful, and standing unbearable. One night after her shift, she returned to find a brown box outside her door. Charity donations dropped off by a local community group. Children's sweaters, a few diapers, a pack of rice, and small shoes. She picked it up with shaking hands. Inside, her daughters watched her with quiet eyes. "Mama, are we poor?" one asked softly. Brenda knelt, pulling her close. "No, baby, we're blessed. People who care about us are helping." She didn't feel blessed. She felt like she was slipping beneath waves she couldn't control, but she refused to let her daughters see her drown. Still, the cruelty of the world didn't spare her. At her cleaning job, one supervisor, a man who believed authority meant domination, often raised his voice at her, slamming doors, throwing complaints like stones. "You're too slow. Why is this not done? Pregnant or not, do your job right." One night, his anger escalated. He slammed a cabinet, shouted inches from her face, and when she tried to explain, he shoved the mop bucket forward, causing her to stumble. She steadied herself, heart pounding. "I can't do this anymore. she whispered. And she didn't. The next morning, she quit. Walking home with her uniform stuffed in a plastic bag, Brenda felt fear and freedom mixing inside her like fire and water. She had no second income now, no safety net, no partner to lean on. But she had her daughters. She had her determination. And deep inside, a quiet voice began to whisper, "You need to stand on your own, truly on your own." It was a terrifying thought and the beginning of everything she would become. Brenda gave birth on a gray morning that smelled of rain. The hospital room was quiet, except for the soft cries of a newborn wrapped in a thin blanket. When the nurse placed the tiny girl in her arms, Brenda felt a rush of love so powerful it pushed every painful memory out of her mind. Another girl, another blessing, another reminder of the man who walked away. But this time, instead of sadness, Brenda felt something new settling inside her, a resolve as steady as stone. She kissed her baby's forehead and whispered, "It's you and me, sweetheart, and your sisters. We're going to be okay." Returning home was different now. The house was the same, but she was not. She moved slower, healing from childbirth while caring for 3 children alone. The medical bills piled up, the fridge echoed hollowly, and the fear of failing her daughters followed her like a shadow. One night, after putting the girls to bed, she sat on the edge of her mattress and stared at the bare walls. Tears slipped down her face, not from weakness, but from exhaustion so deep it felt like her bones were tired. She whispered into the darkness, "I can't live like this forever." And the room whispered back a truth she had been avoiding. No one was coming to save her. She had to save herself. With determination rising, Brenda began searching for a way out of poverty that didn't require begging for patience from employers who didn't care if she was pregnant, hurting, or alone. She wanted control, stability, a future. Her answer came in the form of a memory. Her late grandmother, sitting at an old sewing machine, creating dresses that looked like magic. Brenda remembered watching her, fascinated by the rhythm of the needle and the beauty of the finished work. She remembered watching her, fascinated by the rhythm of the needle and the beauty of the finished work. "Sewing," she murmured. "Maybe I could learn." It sounded absurd at first. She had no time, no money, and barely enough energy to stand some days. But a spark of hope doesn't need much, just belief. So Brenda began attending weekend sewing lessons at a small community center. She strapped her newborn to her chest, held her other 2 daughters by the hand, and walked miles just to get there. The room was always filled with women of all ages, many of them carrying their own stories of heartbreak and survival. For the first time in a long time, Brenda felt the longing. Her instructor, an older woman with gentle eyes, noticed her determination. She said, "You have a gift," one afternoon. "Your stitches are clean, your patterns are neat. Keep going." Those words fed a hunger Brenda didn't realize she had, the hunger to grow, to become something more than the circumstances she was surviving. The weekends turned into her sanctuary. She practiced at night when the girls slept, sewing with borrowed fabric on a borrowed machine. She made tiny dresses for her daughters, hemming them with love and hope. Every stitch felt like reclaiming a piece of her identity. 6 months passed, each one carved with hard work and late nights. And just when she feared she was reaching the end of her strength, a miracle arrived. A local charity organization that supported disadvantaged women awarded her a small grant, enough to buy her own sewing machine, fabric, thread, and basic supplies. The letter announcing the grant shook in her hands as she read it over and over. She cried, not sad tears, but tears of relief and pride. She bought a brand new machine with the grant money. When it arrived, she placed her hand on it like it was something holy. "This," she whispered, "is our new beginning." And it was, because in that moment, Brenda wasn't just surviving anymore. She was becoming. The hum of Brenda's new sewing machine filled her tiny living room like a song of hope. It wasn't fancy, and it wasn't fast, but it was hers. Every time the needle tapped the fabric, it felt like a heartbeat, steady, strong, determined. At first, she sewed simple things, little dresses for her daughters, hair bows, pillow covers, baby blankets. She took pictures of her work with her old phone and posted them online, praying someone, anyone, would see what she was trying to build. The first order came from a young mother in the neighborhood. "Can you make a birthday dress for my daughter?" she asked. Brenda smiled, heart racing. "Yes, I'd love to." She stayed up until 2 a.m. stitching the tiny lace sleeves and smoothing the soft pink fabric. When she delivered the dress, the woman gasped. "This is beautiful! You made this?" Brenda nodded, shy but proud. Word spread quickly. Neighbors told friends. Friends told coworkers. Soon, she had more orders than her living room table could hold. Fabric swatches piled up on chairs, ribbons curled around doorknobs. Her daughters played under the table while she worked, the soft hum of the machine becoming the backdrop of their new life. But this time, the struggle didn't feel hopeless. Brenda saved every extra dollar she made. She cut back on unnecessary spending. She strategized, planned, and prayed over every decision. Slowly, life began to shift. She could buy better groceries. She could replace her daughter's worn-out shoes. She could breathe a little easier. One afternoon, while delivering a custom outfit, a customer said something that changed everything. "Brenda, this is boutique-level work. You should open a shop." A shop. The idea terrified her. Rent? Inventory? Bills? Failure? But then she remembered the nights sleeping hungry, the mornings rushing late to jobs where she was disrespected, the tears she cried sorting through charity boxes, the fear of losing everything. And then she imagined something else. A place of her own, a space where her talent could grow, a future where her daughters could see what resilience looks like. So she took a leap. With her grant savings and a handful of loyal customers cheering her on, Brenda rented a small corner shop just 5 blocks from her home. The walls were cracked, the lights flickered, the floor creaked. But to her, it felt like stepping into destiny. She painted the walls a soft cream color. She added a rack for children's dresses, a small desk for custom orders, and a mirror framed with artificial flowers. Her daughters danced around the room as she set up her sewing table by the window. When she opened her doors, customers flooded in. Women from the neighborhood, mothers who had heard about her work, friends who came to support her. Her business grew faster than she imagined. Within months, she expanded her shop into a ready-to-wear gallery. Her designs became the talk of the community. Women with style and class walked in daily, asking for elegant dresses, children's outfits, and matching sets for family photos. Brenda greeted each one with gratitude and quiet pride. But she didn't forget where she came from. She created a small corner in her shop dedicated to teaching sewing basics to young women. Just a few lessons at first, but the response was overwhelming. Women came eager to learn, to earn, to rebuild their own lives. Her sewing classes grew into a full sewing school, open on weekends and evenings. Brenda guided each student gently, remembering how she once sat in their place, afraid, unsure, but hungry for change. And through it all, Brenda blossomed. She walked taller, she smiled brighter, she dressed with grace and carried herself like a woman who had fought storms and survived everyone. Her daughters admired her, her customers adored her, and her community respected her. She had risen from ashes that once threatened to bury her, and she was just getting started. While Brenda's world slowly rebuilt itself piece by piece, Kelly's life was heading in the opposite direction, quietly, steadily, and inevitably. After walking out on Brenda, he convinced himself he had made the right decision. He found comfort quickly with another woman, Tanya, someone who admired his confidence and believed his stories about needing a fresh start. For a while, Kelly felt powerful again, like he had regained control. When Tanya announced she was expecting twins, Kelly's eyes lit up for the first time in months. "This is it," he told himself. "This time I'll finally get my son." He decorated the new nursery with blue balloons and tiny sports jerseys. He fantasized about teaching his boy how to fish, how to be tough, how to carry his legacy. But life had a strange way of humbling the proud. On the day Tanya gave birth, the doctor smiled politely and said, "Congratulations on your twin girls." Girls. Again. Kelly felt the room tilt. He forced to smile, but deep inside, something bitter twisted. Weeks later, the frustration grew. He blamed Tanya for things she had no control over. He grew distant, irritable, and resentful, just as he had with Brenda. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," he snapped one night. Tanya looked at him, exhausted and holding a crying baby. "Pressure? Kelly, these are your daughters." But Kelly wasn't listening. He spent more nights out, returning home angry and restless. He complained about money, diapers, noise, anything he could point his finger at. He still worked, but his paycheck vanished quickly between bills, baby expenses, and his need to impress others. Meanwhile, Tanya's patience thinned. She watched him unravel. She watched him repeat the same patterns. And she refused to let her children grow up in the storm he carried within him. One evening, Kelly walked into the house to find Tanya sitting at the dining table with papers neatly stacked in front of her. "What's this?" he asked. "Divorce," she said calmly. "I'm done." Kelly's heart slammed against his ribs. "Tanya, don't do this. We can fix it." "No, Kelly," she said, lifting her chin. "You need to fix yourself." He tried to argue, but her mind was made up. The court process was quick, efficient, and painfully heavy on his wallet. He was ordered to pay a significant amount of child support, more than he ever expected. The financial pressure crushed him. His savings drained. His lifestyle changed. He moved into a small apartment with peeling paint and a crooked ceiling fan. The silence there was loud, almost suffocating. Nights became his enemy. He lay awake staring at the ceiling, haunted by the choices he made, the families he broke, and the life he threw away, chasing a fantasy of a son he never had. From time to time, he scrolled through social media, unable to stop himself from checking on Brenda. He saw her small shop transform into a lively business, saw women lined up outside her sewing school, saw her dressed beautifully, smiling confidently, surrounded by her daughters, 3 bright-eyed girls who radiated joy in every picture. His chest tightened with something heavy and unfamiliar. Regret. The woman he left behind was now everything he once said he wanted: strong, stable, admired, purposeful. And he wasn't part of that world anymore. Meanwhile, Tanya moved on faster than he could process. She built a support system around her and focused on raising her daughters in peace. Kelly once again was the outsider, paying child support but receiving no affection, no partnership, no legacy. He began spending his evenings alone, eating takeout from the cheapest diner, watching old sports games in silence, surrounded by emptiness. He wasn't just lonely. He wasn't just broke. He wasn't just regretful. He was realizing the truth. He didn't lose his families because they had daughters. He lost them because he never learned how to love what he was given. Brenda stood in the bright morning sunlight, the gentle hum of sewing machines filling her shop like a heartbeat. Her daughters ran around her, laughing, their small hands tugging at fabric scraps as if they were treasures. The smell of fresh cotton and thread blended with the faint aroma of coffee from the corner cafe she had opened alongside her sewing school. She looked around and felt a quiet pride welling up in her chest. This was her life now, a life she had carved from pain, hardship, and countless sleepless nights. Every stitch she had sewn, every order she had delivered, every moment she had refused to give up had led her here. Her business had expanded far beyond what she had imagined. The ready-to-wear dowry was thriving. The sewing school was packed with women of all ages, some learning basic stitches, others mastering intricate designs. Mothers, daughters, and even grandmothers came seeking a chance to learn, to grow, to transform their own lives. Brenda moved from station to station, checking on her students, offering advice, correcting a hem here, a seam there. She smiled as she saw women gain confidence under her guidance. Each student reminded her of herself, the girl who had once been exhausted, scared, and overwhelmed, but unwilling to let life break her. Her daughters, now growing into bright, confident little girls, looked up to her not just as a mother, but as a model of courage and resilience. They knew the story of their family, the hardships, the struggle, and the triumphs, and they carried that knowledge with pride, learning early what it meant to stand tall no matter the storms. Meanwhile, Kelly's life had become a quiet echo of regret. Divorced again, paying heavy child support, and living alone in a small apartment, he had time, too much of it, to reflect. He saw Brenda's successes from afar, the respect she commanded, the love she shared with her daughters, and he realized, too late, that he had abandoned what truly mattered. Brenda, however, no longer carried anger for him. That chapter of her life had ended the moment she decided to rise. She had no need to waste energy on bitterness. Her focus was her family, her work, and her future. And yet, there were moments, quiet and rare, when she allowed herself to look back. Not with pain, but with gratitude for the journey that had forced her to discover her own strength. She remembered the nights sorting through charity boxes, the mornings rushing to jobs, the long hours learning to sew, the grant that changed everything. Each memory was a stitch in the tapestry of the woman she had become. Her sewing school had grown so popular that women from other towns began to visit. Some came seeking lessons, others mentorship, all drawn by the story of a woman who refused to be broken. Brenda welcomed them all with open arms, teaching not just sewing, but resilience, self-belief, and the art of creating beauty from struggle. She glanced at her daughters, their eyes sparkling with curiosity and joy, and felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She had transformed her life not because someone else saved her, but because she refused to be defeated. The sun streamed through the shop's large windows, highlighting the colors of fabric, the busy hands of women learning, and the faces of three little girls who would grow up knowing they could achieve anything. Brenda smiled to herself. She had everything she deserved: love, respect, independence, and the unwavering bond of her family. Life had tried to break her, but she had turned every challenge into a stepping stone. And as she watched the women in her school, the laughter of her daughters, and the customers admiring her creations, she knew one unshakable truth: strength, resilience, and courage do not just survive pain, they transform it into power. Brenda had done just that. She was a mother, a mentor, a businesswoman, and a survivor. She was everything she had ever needed to be, and she would never let anyone, least of all a man who couldn't see her worth, define her again. Thank you so much for watching. I hope Brenda's journey inspired you. Remember, no matter how hard life gets, strength and resilience can turn even the toughest moments into something beautiful. I'd love to hear from you. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories about love, family, and the power of never giving up. See you in the next story.